Final Sunday in this series of sermons that hopefully have helped you understand the relationships of which you are a part better. Whether those are family relationships, relationships with colleagues, relationships with neighbors and friends, hallmates, sweetmates, wherever there are relationships, hopefully this has been of help to you. We've learned to look in relationships and figure out triangles. Last week we looked at how when there's conflict, we can sometimes back away from each other, and that backing away, that distance can become so great that we don't talk to family members for years and years because we haven't resolved what is underlying all of that. And then today, I'm going to share another one of those characteristics that can occur in relationships when there is stress, when there is anxiety. And like with triangles, this is one of those that when you hear it, you're going to say, I knew that. That's not anything new, but we aren't aware of it and how it affects our relationships. Before we get into that, though, I do want to say a word about next Sunday and the next 4 weeks of Pastor Chenda and I are going to embark on a sermon series titled High Impact, using the scripture readings prescribed for the day from Paul's first letter to the Corinthians. Corinth was an interesting place. It was an isthmus in Greece. It was where the two seas on either side came closer together. And so it was the shortest way to get from one sea to the other. And consequently, it was a very cosmopolitan area, very international, many different beliefs, many religions. There were Christians, there were Jews, there were pagans, there were, you name it, they were there. It kind of sounds like Northern Virginia in many ways. And Paul helped his followers in that area understand the impact they could make as Christians, as followers of Jesus. In our lives, in our work, in our education, we do not and really should not check our faith at the door. At the same time, we need to understand the role and the impact that our faith can have as we live our lives and the kinds of values that we adopt. And that's what we'll be talking about over the next few weeks, beginning next Sunday. So what is that fourth thing that can happen in relationships and even could sneak up on us without our being aware of it? Let me describe a setting. Let's say that you have been dating somebody for 4 months. I'm going to say I've been dating a woman. It could be a man, it could be a woman. It really doesn't matter. As far as you're concerned, the relationship is pretty serious. And you are at the point, I'm at the point, I'm ready to make a commitment to this relationship that might even result in marriage. But then you get to that point with your friend that you talk about your values, the expectations you have in life, where you want to live, how long you want to live there, what you want to do, whether you want to have children, adopt children, how many children, all these conversations that couples have. And as you're having these conversations, you realize that you don't look at things the same way. I mean, she wants to stay close to home, and you like going from state to state to state. You like to change jobs every 5 to 10 years. It's nothing just to drop everything and go on to another company or some other kind of occupation, whereas she likes to have the same job year after year, decade after decade, one place. You like new places to live. You want to live on a boat. You want to live in the woods. You want to live in a house. You want to live in a rural area, an urban area, and yet she wants to live in the same house. for her whole life. Now, there is no right or wrong in this. It's all of these are fine, but it's when two people who are individuals come together as a couple that these are the kinds of things you need to resolve, or else it's going to bring anxiety and stress into a relationship. And so she decides, let's break things off for a while. We're too far apart here. We have different values. It's not you, it's me. How many times have we heard that in relationships? It's not you, it's me. It's us. We're kind of like this. We don't have those things in common that are so important. Well, you break things off for a while. It's her idea. You don't like it, but it's happened. And then you come up with this idea that if I can just convince her how much I like her and love her, she'll change her mind and realize these differences of values really aren't that important. And so you begin by giving her gifts, flowers, not every now and then, every day. You drop by work uninvited, unexpected, with a cup of coffee in the morning and in the afternoon. You may go so far as to clean her apartment, vacuum the floors, wash the dishes, wash the laundry, put it away. You know, these are things you see in the movies of what people do to somehow bring romance and to bring people together, but that's the movies. That's not reality. What's going on here is you're over-functioning. You are going beyond the call of duty. You're going beyond reason here to get in the good graces of somebody. But what you're really trying to do is to get rid of that anxiety, to get rid of that stress in having different values, different expectations, different wants out of life. And you're trying to get rid of the anxiety by doing. It's like the Energizer Bunny. You just keep going. And for some, it works. It works a lot more in the movies, though, than it works in real life. But when it works, we can kind of fall into those patterns. We become chronic over-functioners. These are some of the characteristics of chronic over-functioners. They often know all the answers, and they aren't shy about telling you that. They often do quite well in life. They tell others what to do, how to think, how to feel, and will even tell you how you should not feel if you're feeling a certain way. Over-functioners try to help too much. They assume increasing responsibility for other people. They do things for other people that they don't even really want you to do. They do it uninvited. Over-functioners see the other person as the problem. Remember last week, the you language, you don't do this, and you don't do this, and you're the problem. Over-functioners look at the world this way. And finally, over-functioners demand that others agree with them, saying things like, well, everybody else does it this way. Why don't you do it? What's wrong with you? Everybody else does it this way. Does this describe anybody you know? I am an over-functioner, I confess. I think Arlington is full of over-functioners. I confess. I don't think you become a pastor of a church like this unless you're an over-functioner. That doesn't make it good. It's just something to understand. And wherever there is an over-functioner, you are bound to find under-functioners. Does this describe anybody you know? Under-functioners rely on other people to tell them what to do, what to know, how to feel. Under-functioners ask for advice when they really don't need it. I mean, it's inane stuff. Underfunctioners will take the help that other people offer them, whether it's needed or not, and they almost become dependent upon that. Underfunctioners will ask somebody else what he or she can do for him or herself. Underfunctioners see themselves as the problem in many cases. Underfunctioners are susceptible to going along with the group, whether they agree or not. Even if they disagree, they'll just go along with the group. And finally, underfunctioners give in on many things, or even everything. They will give in on the most important things in life. The more one person overfunctions, the more another person in a relationship tends to underfunction. In my example, the more that the man does for the woman, the more she's going to let him do it. But in the end, nothing changes. She doesn't change her values. He doesn't change his values. Everything is still the same. But somehow doing makes you feel like things are better, but they're not. And if one of them ends up backing down, it feels contrived. It's not authentic. Or another pattern that can happen is that the more one of them tries to do for the other, the more that other will tend to back away. It's called the dance of intimacy. The closer one person wants to be, the other tends to back up. They say words like, "You're smothering me. You're not giving me any room." And so we back up. We back off. In our families, we know who the underfunctioners are. They're the ones who just don't have initiative and drive that others do. Their condition is not helped by the fact that the overfunctioners in their lives spend a great deal of their time and their energy trying to get the underfunctioners to do something. Parents will go to the overfunctioner child and say, "Would you talk to your brother or your sister? Help them get their life together, get their act together. They're not doing anything. They're not going anywhere." And you buy into it, and so you go and you talk to them, and your sibling kind of lets you do it for them. And these patterns just repeat themselves. It happens at work, too. The leader in an office can be an overfunctioner, and everybody else on that team kind of learns that and lets them do their thing. And the more they let that person do their thing, the less they have to do. And it can become chronic. And you walk into that kind of a team and you realize something's not right here. This person's doing everything and these people are doing nothing. But it just feels normal to the people in that office. How do you interrupt something like that? How do you change these kinds of chronic behaviors in relationships? I mean, we all have overfunctioners in our family. We all have underfunctioners. And it's not enough just to recognize they're there. It's not enough just to kind of play the same game over and over. How can we step back and look at what's going on and say, "Daggone it, I'm going to break this pattern. Maybe I can't do it every day, but just one time, I would like for things to turn out a little bit different." Here's how that can happen. The very first thing is something I've said every single week. When you feel something like this going on, stop and think. Don't say a word. Just stop and think. Remain calm. Try to get a perspective on what's going on. Don't say the first words that come out of your mouth, because those are the words that are going to do the most damage over the next 5 to 10 years. Keep your words to yourself. Just recognize something is going on and make note of that. Second thing, figure out who you are. Am I the overfunctioner or am I the underfunctioner here? And it doesn't matter which is which, but recognize which one you are, but also recognize, who am I? Define yourself. That's what I was talking about last week. What you will do, what you will not do, what you believe, what you do not believe. Third thing, stay connected. Don't back away. Don't run away. Don't think by not addressing it, it's somehow going to go away. It's not going to go away. You got to deal with it. Stay connected in that relationship. And then the fourth thing, if you are an over-functioner, even though you probably do know what's best for everybody in your life, don't say that. Just close your mouth. Trust that everybody knows you know what's best. And don't say any more than needs to be said. Just stop and listen. Respect the other person for whom he or she is. Don't think that whatever another person does has to be perfect like you would do it. Boy, did this hit me yesterday. I'm an over-functioner. And, something was going on, and I realized I had to stop myself because I was getting frustrated. I had to stop myself, and I'd say, Ed Walker, you want them to do it exactly the way you would do it. And stop that. Just stop it. If we can have those conversations in our own heads, maybe we can close our mouths sooner than later, because it's when we open our mouth that we get into trouble. The only way for people to learn a better way, in most cases, is to make some mistakes along the way. For there to be forgiveness, and for there to be some flexibility, some adaptability in our relationships with one another as we try things and realize that's not working, let's try something else. Anxiety is a part of all of our lives, and stress is there, and there's no escaping it. But I truly believe if we can just stop and stand back and understand some of the things that go on in our interactions with one another, whether it's our families, our work, in our congregation, if we can just step back and understand what's going on, our relationships can be so much healthier. Whether it's over-functioning or under-functioning, neither one of them is ideal. They just are what they are. But we can step back and we can understand and we can learn from that and we can have healthier relationships with one another. That's my hope and my prayer for you. Thanks be to God.